because this is going to be helpful information for some people. But yeah, so now you're reminding me, I think Zoom made the decision that they, as long as you're a professor, they will give you a pro account for free, which is silly that I paid for mine then. Darn.
Can I tell you, honestly, the weird thing about it is that it said K through 12.
Oh, really?
But I put St. John's University and then I hit agree.
Yeah.
And another professor that I was on another WebEx meeting with last week from the ICS department had said that it's free for professors. Yeah. So honestly, I'm just going to take my chances because I don't teach K through 12, but we'll see.
Well, I mean, education, you know, if they assume that we still have money, then they're silly because that money, I mean, unless you're an institution that has a Zoom professional contract, which many do.
Wow.
I teach for another school, and they said, oh, if you want a pro account. Well, my current institution for the next 4 days left on my contract, we have pro Zoom accounts, and then a new institution that I'm teaching one class for, they have pro Zoom accounts. But so technically at this moment, I have 3 pro accounts if I want them.
Unlimited.
But I just bought mine because it's, you know, then you have the flexibility of recording and you have the flexibility of doing all the bells and whistles that I think are in there.
Yeah,
so that's good. I'm glad you got that. So now, you know, Rosa, do exactly what she did, get a free account, because if you get a normal account, it's only for 40 minutes per call. And
I've been using that. You know, my problem is with WebEx.
Okay. We'll just,
I hate WebEx.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I'm trying to find, like, because I need to use a breakout room and I couldn't find it. I was testing out yesterday and just couldn't find it.
I use Zoom. I went from one call to this, and it's there. I don't think I've shared this, but I'm going to share it if I can find it. There's a thing called Cave Day, which I use, and it is so easy or so nice the way that they do it. Sorry, let me just find it, caveday.org. And I can give you guys a free pass if you want to check it out. And it allows, the way that they use Zoom is fantastic. It's very engaging and it's very, you know, change the name. These are some of the tips and tricks that I'm going to share today. But, you know, just watching how they operate is very, very cool. And so if you can embrace some of that within, you know, your Zoom sessions, because the 3 of us are going to be teaching via Zoom, then you might learn a couple things that feel good. Plus, it's a great way to get your work done. There are a lot of academics within Cave Day, people that are writing their dissertations, people that are teaching you know, some K through 12, a lot of higher ed. So it's a good group. So it's, I think it's what, $35 a month for unlimited membership. And basically what they do is they help you manage your time in terms of knocking projects out. It's very, very helpful. So I'll do some days, I'll do 3 in a row. So that's 9 hours in a day. I will not do one at all today because I'm back to back all day. And then I have class from 5 to 7:50. But this is just something you can check out and do the 3, as I put in there, do a 3-hour cave and just try it out and see what you think. But just watch how the facilitator, which would be the instructor, does different things. We do calisthenics, we do, you know, stretches, we do a little bit of yoga, deep breathing in between the sprints. And then like they'll do some breakout rooms with other people, and then you talk about a couple things and you come back. And they use the whiteboard function within Canvas.
Wow.
So everybody can draw together. It's fun, you know, and not everybody does it, and they don't do it every time, but
I made my sit and stretch today, actually.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah, because I think it's important, you know, like I told them, I was like, I can concentrate, I'm really good at that, but I'm so fidgety. Do you remember like in class, like I just can't sit still. I can't do it, you know?
I'm adding that to my script. I'm going to have them do it.
Yeah. And what about students? Like, are they ready? Or because that's I concern the most is that are they ready for this new platform?
Believe it or not, Rosa, they are.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Another thing that I kept saying throughout the class is like, we have to build this together. And I think people kind of like, yeah, I think so. I was like, listen, I'm not going to sit here and babble for 2 hours. I can't do that. I told them, I was like, I'm going to make you guys do activities. We're going to do breakouts. We're going to figure it out, you know? And they are ready. And I also asked them in the beginning of the class, like one thing they love about online learning and one thing they dislike. So I could kind of gauge what I need to help the class with throughout the semester. So one class had a lot of issues with concentration. Like every student was like, I can't concentrate. Concentration is really hard for me. And my other class was really concerned with like relationship and learning community. So I feel like just asking them and knowing that, I think that helped me feel like, okay, you know, and I did a little bit of screen sharing with them and I showed them like how to access stuff. And it seems, I actually kind of like it. I'm surprised.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I told them, I was so
thank you.
honest. I told them, I was like, I took an online teaching course and it really helped me. So I said, I hope it really helps you guys because it really helped me.
Oh yes, I would just share with the Damien. I said, like, this is so great, like really, like this classes like, from him, and also like the meeting, like twice per week, and even listening to like the colleagues, the classmates' questions. I said that helps so much too. Reading all this, like, everybody's discussion. It was just so helpful.
I agree. I think so too. I think that the OTE program is super strong. I don't know if it's just because I'm like so excited to learn something new, but it's so easy and like dummy proof, at least for me, because I was just like, wow, this is so much easier than I ever imagined it to be.
Well, if you take the time and you go through the process, and that's, I steal this term from my days in advising fraternities and sororities back in the day, is this idea of trust the process.
Yeah.
You have to trust the process. And so if you go through OTE and you don't skate, as I would say, and you actually read read, watch, listen to the content, then you get that foundation. And then, as you work on the assignments and participate in the discussions, it gives you those tools that you need. And then the rest, kind of falls into place if you put the time in. So.
Yeah, it's so remarkable. Like I was so resistant. I can't even tell you how resistant I was to online.
Because you're voluntold to take the course, right?
No, I was dying to take the course.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was like, if I have to teach again, I'm going to be screwed. Like if I have to do a full semester online, someone has to help me do it because I do not know. I literally have no idea. And so I like kind of pushed myself into class. I emailed the different departments. I was like, yo, can you get me into this class or not? Like, if you want to hire me, I need to take this class, So I really needed it.
It worked.
It did.
You got in.
Yeah, it's great.
Good stuff. Well, let me, let's have a little bit of a conversation. We'll go for another 20 minutes or so. But I want to share some tips and tricks, and I'll lean in the direction of Zoom a little bit because the three of us are teaching via Zoom. The couple things that I'll do, I'll share, and some of this might be redundant, but this is one of my announcements, and one of the things that I do in my announcements is that I build the links right into the announcements so that the students see what they need to see, and they can link right into Canvas in most circumstances, not always. Sometimes they need to be logged in already, but this gives them what they need, and they can always go back into the announcements area of Canvas for their particular course, and they can see everything. So when you create the announcement, you hit save, not only does it save it in that area, but it also sends them an email. So you're kind of doubling those efforts, which I think is really helpful. One of the things that I like to do as kind of a trick is doing little reminders or walkthroughs some of the basic functions. So Rosa and I were talking about this idea of, how prepared students are for Canvas. And I think most people assume that the youth, they know how to use computers and everything's great. And, and you just said that they were fine, but I still have students that haven't logged into my course yet. And we start at 5 o'clock today. Yeah. So I'm a little concerned. So what I did is I created a little video on my phone, which is very basic. I'm not going to play it, but it's a couple minutes, and it's just me like this with my camera saying, okay, and I went into the student view for the course, and I walked them through, this is where you'll find this, and this is where you'll find this, and just, this is where you start every time, and so everything you need is right here. It's brief. And then I showed this to Rosa. The Passport to Canvas is actually, which is kind of funny, it's a Canvas course about Canvas for students in the dashboard. So theoretically, the students can take that, and they can learn a little bit more about how Canvas operates.
And it's called Passport to Canvas.
Yep, right here.
And that's but I don't see that. Only the students do, right?
I don't know why I see it. It just happens to be in my dashboard. I don't know. I don't know if it's something. I don't know if somebody got my email and said, oh, let's just put this into his course, into his dashboard, because I don't know where it came from. I just, all of a sudden I looked, and there it was when I was trying to figure out, Rosa's question about how we can support students to better understand Canvas. So hopefully, and I'm, Rosa's also a student right now at St. John's, so maybe she can dig around and maybe find that. One of the things I might do as a little extra credit piece for my students tonight is a challenge for them to create a quick video tutorial of, start to finish, how to log into Canvas and do a couple of different things, and see if, help them to create the content. And then I'll give one of them an extra point on something. Because I don't think that's there. And I think that's something that we should have had in place a couple weeks ago. We just don't, which is fine. We'll get there together. All right, so more tips and tricks. So I have a list of things. So one of the things that I do is I create a script. And again, this is kind of basic teaching, but I have my script, and you don't have to see it to really understand it, but it's a script that goes line by line, what I'm going to cover. I don't put the little timetables on it. Like, I'm not saying at the 35-minute mark, you're going to do this, but it's in sequence. And then I have a little list on the side that says always, and these are the things that I'm going to always do in each session. And again, we're talking more remote, but even if I was doing office hours, I would do this, welcome everyone. And I'm going to do the little thumbs up thing. So how are you feeling today? Thumbs up, down kind of here, a little bit down here, just to check in with them. Because I really think that it needs to be all hands on deck to make sure that the students have that support system this semester. And then if a student goes like this, I'm going to make a note and I'm going to follow up with them. Just to see, you're super thumbs down. Is there anything I can do to help? And then based on their response, I will do some triage, and I'll funnel them into I'll do e-introduction to somebody on campus that can help them. I have a little list that says call on 3 students, right out the bat, call on 3 students, get them engaged, get them a little bit on edge so that they know that they can't just play a video game on the side.
Agreed. So call on 3 students.
I am actually planning each week. It's part of my list, and I'll show you that in a moment. It's part of my protocol that I'm going to mention 20 students every week. Okay, so I have 40 students in the course. So every 2 weeks, I will have mentioned every student at least once. And so the idea is that they know that they're being thought about, and that they're, it might be something that I pull out from the discussion board, and Samantha said this, and Jamal said this, and, I really like what Susie was talking about when she referenced this type of marketing, whatever it is. But the idea is to make sure that they understand that they're not just a number. So that's a little trick. Oh, within Zoom, again, this is very Zoom specific. I'm sure you can do it in WebEx as well, but ask them to change their name on their picture. So we each have our names. So change your name and add a brand. So what I'm gonna do for my class, because it's marketing, is they're going to be, you know, Jamal with Coca-Cola, you know, for that particular session. Or they might be, you know, Susie with Hilton, you know, and just to have fun with that. And I'm going to do something a little bit different each time. And that you'll see that if you do the cave day, they ask you to change your name, to identify where you are, and then also what you're going to be working on. And so that's a very normal process. And I think it works really well for what we're trying to do. And, you know, one day we could say, you know, what color are you feeling right now? And they could write in their name and then orange, or their name and then blue, and you know, and you could break that down in terms of significance if you want. I like symbolism. Symbolism is fun, and so you can do some things with that. Another thing that I have on my always list is always have the roster open, so the names and pictures of all the students, so that you know who it is. I mean, obviously, if they do what they're supposed to in Zoom, then it's fine. You'll know who they are. And then we talked about earlier, well, just this idea of breathing exercises and stretching, which you mentioned actually. So yeah, that's what I have on my list. So in terms of tips and tricks, making sure to have somewhat of a script ready is helpful. And that's also helpful if you're recording video. So does that make sense, Rosa?
Yep.
Yep. Let's see, what's another?
I try to write it down, like, you know, you have it, what I missed.
Oh, good. And I'm also recording this, so you can always go back to it. So yeah, ask students to rename themselves. So one of the things that I know that I think our policy at St. John's is that we can't require them to have their camera on the whole time. So if we're doing a core, you know, we're teaching, they can turn their camera off and they can turn their microphone off, you know, which I don't want to look at just a whole bunch of black boxes, you know, that's not going to be fun. So what I'm going to require of them is that they have an avatar, kind of like your avatar, Rosa. So if you're not going to have your camera on, then you have an avatar of you. It can either be a picture of you or it can be an animated version of you, just so that we have, you know, a community within a Zoom community. Because if it's just all black boxes and just initials, it's just not fun. So that's one of my tricks. So that addresses the rule of not requiring cameras, but it also gives you an image of that person, which is, I think, helpful for our purposes. And then one of the other notes is that be in a position to take notes about them. So I try not to print out too much stuff, but I might have a little thing on the side of my screen where I'm just taking notes about individual students, things that they're interested in, things that are troubling them, things that I might want to come back to with them later or ask them a question. These are basic teaching things, but I think it's stuff that's helpful, especially as you're on your computer, to have different things going. And I have a pad next to me, and I also have my little notepad on the screen, which is helpful. Oh, here's a little trick, which is great for Zoom. You can do an exercise where they decide on something, either yes or no, based on them turning on or off their camera. So if you have, you know, 40 students on the screen, you can say, okay, if you like Coca-Cola more than Pepsi, turn your camera on. Or if you think that one day we will watch NFL games with crowds in the stands again, turn your camera off. You know, you can do that kind of, you could have a bunch of questions ready. And it's kind of and Rosa, you'll remember this from student affairs, it's that same exercise as having everybody stand in a line. And then if you like one thing or the other, you step left or you step right. And so you could do the same thing with Zoom. And there's other aspects, the thumbs up, you know, which you can do. You can raise your hand. You can do all these things. Zoom has a lot of functionality that we just kind of skip over for whatever reason. So.
Oh, okay. I never know. Like I haven't ever known to use those functions.
Yeah, and it's a lot of what we're talking about, and this goes back to OT and just online pedagogy in general. You can do everything. It's just about bending tools to do what you need them to do. You know, you can use the discussion board in a million different ways. You just have to set it up that way. And so, you know, these are just little tricks, whether it's WebEx, Zoom, or Teams, or even Skype, I guess. You can do a lot of these same kinds of things. You know, in the chat, using the chat as a tool for Zoom, put in, you know, one word that describes how you're feeling today. Okay, and you just throw it out there. I think that every session we should be checking in with the students. Every session. One good process is if they have a question, they should write it in the chat, but also maybe ask it verbally. And then you have them all essentially muted for the most part so that it doesn't get too loud, but you allow other students to be able to read the question, because we have to realize that not every student is going to be as clear as other students in terms of being understood, whether it's language or just the connection, internet connection. So that kind of doubles up. Let's see what else. A couple things in here that I've mentioned before, but I'll
Damien,
go ahead.
If I could just interject, I think what is really helpful, and I'll know more about my students' like use of technology, is I created a really basic like technology access quiz where I ask them like, what's your internet access? Do you have your own computer? Do you have uninterrupted, like, do you have Netflix and Amazon? Because my class is like a film class, so they need to have access to that. And then also I told them that they better keep like all their SJU login stuff in a safe place in case they are X'd out of their communication. And I also told them I have to do that because although I'm automatically logged on, I'm so scared that I'm going to end up logging out and not knowing how to log back in.
That's a really good tip.
Thanks.
Actually that was the one about Amazon and Hulu and Netflix and stuff. That was one that I remember sharing with Ira because he shows a lot of movies. And this is actually, I'm glad you brought this up because this goes back to a previous conversation. There are a lot of instructors that just willy-nilly just play movies for their students, totally violating a lot. You know, you just can't. And it happens on the student affairs side and it happens on the academic side all the time. But I learned in my days at St. John's as in campus activities, you know, I did the contracts for Swank and, you know, we pay them the big bucks. But there's nothing to say, and this goes back to your quiz, which is, I think, fantastic, is to say, what subscriptions do you have? And then based on that, it might change your approach, but for the most part, our students are very resourceful. So instead of giving them the movie, we say, okay, be resourceful and find this movie and watch at least the first 30 minutes of it. Or you know, find this documentary. everybody's got a friend, everybody's got a family member, everybody's got a login that they can access if they don't already have it. And they can be resourceful, because then we're not violating. We might be an accomplice, I guess, if we're telling them to go acquire the movie. But I think that's a good question to ask, because if you find out that basically half the class doesn't have any access, and I think that's how you phrase the quiz, maybe the question is, do you have access to Hulu, Netflix, Amazon, blah, 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 you know, Disney Plus. I don't have access to Disney Plus. So I'm not going to be requiring them to watch any Marvel movies or Star Wars or anything like that. Although I am going to ask them a question today. I'm going to say, what is it? Oh, for our introductions, it's going to be name, where you are now, and Marvel character you'd want to be if you could be. And I do it popcorn style. So I'm going to basically call different names out at different times. I'm not going to go alphabetically or anything. And then I'm actually using that as a prompt, because from a marketing perspective, Marvel, before they were purchased by Disney, made a fundamental change in the way that they manage their characters back in 2005, I believe, 2004, 2005. They started treating them like human beings. So instead of just giving everybody the rights to a character like Spider-Man, they actually said, you know, okay, no, we're going to treat Spider-Man like Ryan Reynolds. We're going to manage him in such a way that we're not just giving everybody the rights. So there's a marketing angle to it. So it's fun. But I like that quiz. And I think those kinds of quizzes are a great tip or trick, you know, for our courses to get a better sense for where our students are. And there may be things that come up, you know, around, I'll say, natural disasters. You know, is there, you know, if you think back to Sandy when it hit New York, that impacted a lot of students. And so that would be a great time to put out some feelers, and you could do it in the form of a quiz to say, okay, at this present time, do you have access to, do you have electricity? Do you have, of course, you're asking this over email, which sounds silly, but as long as they can access it on their phone. I think a good question, by the way, is what percentage do you think you will be doing your homework on your phone versus a laptop? You know, or maybe what device will you do the majority of your work on? Computer, phone, laptop, you know, put all different kinds of things. It may be a borrowed computer. Even though we give our students computers at St. John's, I know that in a lot of places, they do everything through their phone. You know?
Yeah, you can also ask the students to have like a backup device.
Right. What is your backup device?
I told them, I said, you got to pick it, you know, if like whatever you have, if you're using your laptop and your phone or your iPad is your secondary, just make sure you have it on standby in case for whatever reason your computer doesn't work that day.
And backup internet source.
Backup internet source.
Yeah. So when I used to help, I do it once in a while still, but when I help open up restaurants or cafes or something like that, I'm a big fan of redundancy. And so you have your internet connection to run the register and everything else, but you should always have a secondary, you know, and it might just be a hotspot, but something needs to run, you know, the POS so that they can take orders, et cetera. So I think that's a good part of the quiz as well. Oh, that's good. Other tips and tricks, getting back to Canvas, using and I think you asked this question yesterday, Rosa, was, you know, how do you create the little headers, the little reminders within Canvas? All it is a text header, and you can just write yourself a note. Send out technology quiz. And as long as you don't publish it, nobody sees it except for you. And so it's a good reminder each week as you're going through the canvas and you're looking at this at some point. It can be a good way to make sure that you do a particular thing. Now, you don't want this, 15 different reminders, but it might just be a big thing. And then so here is just a cute one. Wish them a happy first week. Great, nice little reminder. I'm gonna remove this one. Let's see other little things. And here, this is actually just a text header that I use as a reminder for them. Trying to think. I've said this before, but I'll add it in here since we're talking about tips and tricks. The holding folder is a great place. You don't publish it, but it's just where you put some assignments, you put some discussions, and then you can take things out and you can move them to, other weeks. Of course, you have to open them up first. And if you notice, there's my little reminder, mention 20 students. And so I do that. It's the reminder in every single week that I have.
Could you kind of let me know, when you say mention, do you just mean like ask them a question, or you somehow respond either in class or online?
I'm talking about outside of the actual class session, like in an email, in a video. So I might send out a video as a kind of a recap of the week. And I might say, this past week was really important because we talked about the foundation of marketing. We talked about the different categories, and you'll remember from the discussion, there's a great debate between Mark and Roger about what really is marketing versus advertising. And so it's very subtle. They don't realize that you're doing what you're doing, but you make sure, and I would say just have literally a list of the 40 students and you just check off, when you mention them. And you could also do it in the form of an email. You send out an email to intro the week, and you might say, as you'll recall from last week, Kojo talked about this. And it's just a matter of reinforcing. And obviously in the class session, you want to mention as many students as possible. I said 3, but that was just to kick off the class. But throughout the couple of hours, I'm going to probably say most of the names. I'm going to ask questions in the same way that we would walk around the room if it was a physical classroom. Because otherwise, they feel like they don't matter. And we need to make sure that they matter. I put mention 20 students in every single week. And that's just a reminder to me. Let's see what else. I think the structure of the pages is pretty important. And this is something that I'm pretty happy about, how to write a paper. So I created a page that really just identifies the basic structure of any papers that they're going to submit. And I provide them with 2 samples, a 1-page version, which is single space, and a 2-page version, which is double space. And I give them the doc and the PDF. So the PDF, they can see exactly the way it's supposed to look. And the doc is something that they can download and then just write over. And so the format's already in there. Mm-hmm. And then I give them the link to the OWL site, which is always helpful for APA. And I use a modified APA. I'm not quite 100% APA because I don't need all the extra fluff, which is why I give the sample paper.
Would you mind sending that? Is that APA style, the samples, or are they not?
They're my version of APA style.
It depends on depends on like your major. If you are education, like liberal arts and not science, that's history, English, all of that, it could be APA. Psychology, definitely APA. If you are history, it has to be like a Caribbean, Chicago, Caribbean. And in business, they usually just use MLA.
Yeah, I mean, I've used MLA in some courses, but that's only because the course required it. but I don't need to always use it. Let's see. There we go, and I'm sending all 4 to both of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
It's, yeah, for me, it's just consistency. I want them to get, you know, very clear about what the expectations are right from the first day. And then that way, and especially when it comes to references, I want to make sure that they understand that they need to provide sources. And this is part of reinforcing non-plagiarism, if that's ever a term. But I think it's, pages are great. And I've learned to be better at this over the last year and a half. Let's see how discussions work. This particular one is just me talking about it, and then I provide my structure and the points. And so that,
yeah, this is really helpful, because when I learned from one of the past class sessions, when you mentioned that, I started using it, and I was like, oh, this is really good. It's more like a note for that. It's more like my notepad for the creating the whole courses.
Yeah, you know, and actually, you just encouraged me, inspired me to add a piece which I think is missing with this, is when you, let's see, there is also an expectation, you can write this any way you want, obviously, but there's also an expectation in terms of the content, which is to mean that you can't just write an attaboy, as I call it, attaboy.
You're making the classes so much fun.
Right. This is an attaboy. Great post. Thank you. If that's all you say, that's not great. So this is a better post. Something to the effect, I really enjoyed your perspective on what marketing is. I'll fix it in a second. There we go. Perspective on what marketing is, because it illustrates the difference between traditional and newer approaches. Do you think, well, actually, what do you think will be the next wave of marketing? So what I'm trying to illustrate is that an attaboy, just great job, and then that's it, is not a response. If you walked into an actual conversation and you said, that sounds great, and then you just walked away, that the person would be bewildered and confused because you added nothing. But if you walked in, you say, you know, I hear what you're saying about this, and I think X, Y, Z, but maybe, you know, what about this? That's a conversation. So I'm going to keep working on this. Makes sense? I'm going to say, let me know. Oh, wait. I will clarify this in the first few discussions. That way they know what to expect. I'm going to say content. All right. And then saved. All right. So I think that's a good place to probably leave it. I have to get ready for something in an hour. I think I just had to jump.
Yep. Okay, thank you so much.
Awesome.
You so
You're
much,
welcome,
Damien.
Rosa. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
You too.